Oh, hello, and welcome to another Beehive webinar. We're super excited to be here with you. I hope everybody had a great Thanksgiving wherever you are in the world. If you're outside the US or in the US, I hope we took a week off as we celebrated the season of giving with our families and loved ones. And now we're back for a couple weeks before the Christmas holiday, but we have a packed couple weeks of great value adding sessions planned, and we're kicking that off starting today, bringing back Nathan, who joined us a couple weeks ago to cover how to scale your newsletter ads account to six figures and beyond with Meta ads. And so, he did such a great job. There was so much positive feedback around his first webinar that we wanted to bring him back and provide even more value to everyone here. I'll let him do an introduction about his background and the agency that he runs. We'll do these intros as people filter into the room. If you are wondering, we will be recording this and we'll be providing the recording after the fact. It takes a couple days to get it edited down and taking out all the ums and ahs and making it look really nice, but it will be provided. So when somebody arrives late and invariably jumps into the chat asking if it's going to be recorded, we can mob them and tell them, yes, it will be recorded. Here we go. We got the deck started and queued up. And with that, I will pass things over to Nathan to kick things off.
Awesome. Super excited to be with you guys. We're going to switch it up this time around. So, the last time we talked a lot about scaling paid ads at six figures a month and beyond, but I want to talk to you guys about something different. So we just did a really large digital product launch with the newsletter. I think this is probably one of the best ways for newsletters to monetize. And so I thought, what better way to talk about this than to just walk through everything we did so that you can steal it and do it for your newsletter. That'd be a fun topic. So that's what we're going to talk about. I'll give you a quick TLDR on us, and then we'll get into the fun stuff, which is the content. But I run a company called The Feed Media. We grow newsletters and convert readers into revenue. Generally, that looks like three things you probably see here on your screens. We run paid ads for a lot of the really large enterprise brands on beehiiv. We work with Tyler, Jesse Pujji, all different kinds of folks. We also place blue chip sponsors with newsletters. We sold about $3 million of ad inventory for newsletters in the past 7 months. And then we do really what will be the topic of today, which is email marketing and sales flow. So how do you actually take either your newsletter or really an email list, right? If you're a business owner and you're not writing editorial newsletter, and convert readers into customers. So there's three things that we're going to talk about. Number one is like, how do you actually design an offer, right? How do you do that? How do you come up with a product, and how do you know it's going to work with your audience? The second thing we'll talk about is how you actually sell with email nurture that gives people something before asking for something. This is probably the number one mistake I see people make when they sell digital products, or even B2B SaaS or service businesses when they're trying to sell to an email list. And then I want to talk to you about high converting sales pages. We're going to get really tactical. We're going to walk through every single content block that we used on our sales page with this Beehiiv newsletter, Bootstrap Giants, and basically tell you how we think about constructing high converting sales pages. All right. So before we get into some tactical stuff, I want to talk about why it's important for most newsletters to try to go beyond ad monetization and build some type of back-end product. So there is a difference between a newsletter, in my view, and a media business. Media businesses most commonly have something on the back end that is high LTV. So if you joined for the last session, I walked through this slide, which is effectively like, what are good benchmark metrics for, in this case, a B2B newsletter that is advertising, or rather monetizing through advertising. Yeah. 40% open rates, right? You're driving high quality readership at as low a cost per lead as possible, so that in number three, you can monetize at these types of CPMs, which means you're making roughly 20 to 40 cents per reader per month. And what is all of that in support of? It's investing back into your business so that you can grow faster, right? Most media companies are breaking even on subscribers within 3 to 6 months. And so the thing that does hold media companies back is generally not that they are unprofitable. It's the time horizon in which they become profitable. 3 to 6 months can be a relatively long payback period. So what if you could decrease that? What if you could make it under a month? That's the topic of this discussion. How might you do that? We're going to talk about a 3.1 and a 3.2, which are products. How do you use low ticket, high ticket products? This is just referring to the price point, by the way, and or services to bring your payback period as close to instant as possible. And so we'll talk specifically about a $47 digital product that we launched, which generated about $1.50 per subscriber in this particular newsletter. And then we'll talk about a higher ticket, $5,000 accelerator for B2B founders that we helped launch with this newsletter as well. So all of this together is what I refer to as the media mullet, right? I think every newsletter should be growing out their media mullet. A media mullet is commonly newsletters have very simple, free content, right? That's ad supported in the front end. And then you've got this back end of high LTV products, communities, digital products, services, events, right? You name it. All of that is sitting on the back end. And there are tons of companies that are doing this successfully already. You've got Blockworks, which has just its events business alone doing over $10 million a year. Right? So not even talking about their SaaS product or their sponsorship products or anything else like that. The Van Trump Report, $20 million a year in paid content. Obviously, we'll talk about number 3, Bootstrap Giants. Workweek is doing millions and millions of dollars to the community. Bloomberg Media, probably the most typifying example, right? Technically a SaaS company, right? That every Wall Street company pays $100,000 a year to access their SaaS tools, but is a media company on the front end. So there's this really high potency. And that's why a lot of media companies want to become product companies. You combine excellent distribution with really high monetization. And it's why a lot of product companies want to become media companies. Yeah, please.
Oh, sorry. I wanted to add just a little plug real quick, kind of related to the previous slide. We've actually seen one of our biggest success stories with this. You may be familiar, Nathan, is Bullet Pitch, which is they run like a newsletter around like very early seed stage venture quality startups. And I've been to a couple of their events. They started as a newsletter with beehiiv like within the first couple of months of us launching, and they started that newsletter, but they're really transitioning to kind of an events first organization because they find that that's like one of the best ways to monetize, one of the best ways to get in front of people, build their clout. And very quickly, it's like they've taken this newsletter concept that's just zeros and ones existing people's inboxes and have parlayed it into these incredible like multi-hundred people events. I was at a gala with like some of the top VC investors in New York City a couple weeks ago, like black tie, everyone in tuxes. It's like really incredible like how they've taken just this newsletter product and really parlayed it into events, but just literally demonstrates what you're talking about right here. Just wanted to make that connection with specifically a beehiiv newsletter that's doing quite well.
Yeah, I love it. Blockworks also
Also
on beehiiv with
yep.
all their newsletters.
Yep.
Don't want to forget that. Yeah, totally agree. And you see this on the flip side too. So product companies, they start with something that's very high LTV and they go, hey, wouldn't it be awesome if we have the distribution of a media company? Robinhood acquired Snacks. It acquired Charter. That's now Sherwood Media. HubSpot, of course, probably everybody knows, acquired Sampar's The Hustle for something like $28 million. JP Morgan Chase acquired The Infatuation, and Informa acquired Industry Drive for $525 million. So just again and again, you're seeing this coalescence of media plus something else. Media plus something else. Here's what we're going to walk through. In August, sort of July and August, really not that long ago at all, we did a launch for my buddy Jesse Pujji and Andrew Warner for a beehiiv newsletter called Bootstrap Giants that did over $250,000 within 90 days. And we're going to break open the full launch for you guys right now. 4 parts to this: research, offer creation, and then we'll get really tactical, specific emails that we use, frameworks that we like, and then I'll walk you through a winning sales page as well. So how do you do really amazing research? This is a really important part. I find it's probably where people skim the most and do a lot of guesswork around what they should launch. Your research process will be fundamentally important for what you launch and how you sell it. And if you do this process right, it makes everything down the line way, way easier for your business. One of the top ways that we like to collect information on how we can be valuable to the reader, sign-up surveys. We love sign-up surveys. There are 2 ways that I think about running sign-up surveys. So user signs up. This is option 1, sign-up surveys. User signs up from organic content or a paid ad. They reach a landing page, and then you have a post-sign-up survey where you're asking them questions about what they're interested in, maybe what type of business they run, right? This would be specific to your niche. But this is a lot of how we collected the initial data, just using beehiiv's native survey capabilities to understand, okay, well, what should we launch? Who's actually reading the newsletter? The other way are lead magnets. So you give something away for free that is extremely valuable, that solves one very specific problem for one very specific niche, and people trade a lot of information about themselves in order to get that lead magnet. So this is from Hampton, Sam Parr's latest company, right? This is a wealth survey they did. I actually tell you, there's a different lead magnet that I put my info for. They did a survey of like revenue, niches, margins, channels used for agencies, right? Like 50 agencies that are within Hampton. Extremely valuable to me, right? I would love that information. So I'm putting in my name, my revenue, all kinds of things about my company in order to get access to that. I think these are really good typifying examples of how to collect first-party data on the front end. The last thing I'll say, when you're doing surveys, this is the number one place to collect it is when the reader signs up. So if you collect it on sign up, you might get anywhere between 50 to 90% of people giving you very detailed information about themselves. If you wait until they've joined the newsletter and you follow up with an email, that becomes like 2%, right? It is fundamentally, it's an order of magnitude lower. So you want to do it on the front end. What do you ask? What kind of information do you try to get? I think there are 7 things that most companies try to ask for people. Particularly if you're in B2B, industry, job, title, and then these other ones, 4 through 7, are more about, they could work for B2B or B2C. They're more about what does the reader want out of the information that you are giving them. This could be their interests, their dream outcomes, right? So what kind of goal are they trying to achieve? What problems are getting away from that goal, or rather in front of that goal? What have they attempted to do to solve those problems? And so as an example, just to make this tactical with Bootstrapped, we really want to understand, first of all, do we have somebody who is in a business to business, great B2B, or are they selling to consumers? Okay, well, great. What niche are they in? You can see on the right-hand side. Are they doing mobile apps? Are they doing e-commerce? Are they, an agency owner, right? These things are very important in terms of, how we're going to talk to this person and like how we're going to think about prioritizing the things that we could give this person that would be valuable. And so overall, in your research process, this is part 1 with surveys. We'll talk about part 2 in a second. But good research should leave you with answers about 5 things. Number 1 is the person's dream outcome. Number 2 is problems, what they've already tried, what happens if they don't get the dream outcome, and then number 5, objections to what your solution might be. So I'll give you an example, right? Let's say that we're researching newsletter operators who want to generate revenue with their email list, right? That's you, right? If you're watching this workshop, right, that probably describes you. What are the things that you'd want to know to deliver a really effective workshop? The dream outcomes might look like, hey, I want my newsletter to make money, but I don't want to feel salesy. I don't want to feel pushy, right? That might be one of the problems. You might be afraid that, hey, maybe my subscribers will unsubscribe if I try to sell to them. Or maybe I'll launch a product and it just won't work. What have you tried already? This could be many different things. Maybe you've sent out the one-off promotional emails, but they didn't convert. What happens if you don't get the dream outcome? You might keep pouring time and effort into writing your newsletter, right? Once a week, maybe you're even doing some that's daily, and subscriber numbers are going up, but the revenue number, it's not really where you want it to be. You're not really seeing the return that you would want given your time invested. What objections might get in the way of you attending or buying a solution around this? Maybe you say like, hey, selling on my list, it's not going to work for me. I don't have some giant list like a Sahil Bloom or a Justin Welsh. There's just not enough people there. Right? These are all things you'd have to think about. And the example we'll walk through, Bootstrap Giants, by the way, for number 5, it's a relatively small list. There was about 14 or 15,000 people when we did this launch. So, this at least will equip you, hopefully, to get rid of number 5 if that's a limiting belief. And there's, of course, other things that could go there. But all right, let's keep going. So the second tactical part of like how do you go and do research is talking to your customers. I feel like this is like the best solutions often are the most simple, and they're often the ones that people just don't do. Email your readers, start a conversation with them. Call your readers, right? Try to get their number, try to grab time with them on Zoom and ask them all the 5 things that I just mentioned on the previous slide. What we did was we emailed people simple 1-word requests to begin a conversation. So you can see here, right on the right-hand side, we talk about, as Jesse, we're thinking about putting something together really interesting for readers. Here's some different social proof. Here's who we think this thing is going to be for. If you're in B2B and let's say you're below a certain amount of revenue, by the way, if you're interested in talking, just write back 1 word, right? We made it as easy as possible. We're not asking for some long, extensive response at first. We just want to make the next step. We want to get them to the next step, the easiest one. So just 1 word. And then we initiated a conversation. And we went through really extensive discussions with folks about their companies, what revenue they were at, what problems they were having getting customers. And you can see people really open up here, right? On the right-hand side, somebody's talking about their revenue. They're talking about how they're getting customers, what's getting in the way of that. And so this gave us a tremendous amount of information on what we could solve. And so the result of this, like what we put together to understand what we should launch and how we position it, is a sheet very much like the one you're looking at. In fact, this was just from our notes. I just grabbed this from the documents that we did during this project. And the first thing we were trying to answer is like, who are these people? What do they want? So for us, that was people who are in B2B. They're on their way to 50K a month plus in revenue, but they're not there yet. And they want to know where their next clients are going to come from because they have a system for customer acquisition. It's not random. They know where the customers are going to come from, and they feel confident in their sales calls for those customers. What are the pain points? We'll go through all of these, but just to give you an example, a lot of people didn't know what channel to even start with. You've got content, you've got ads, you've got cold email, you've got cold phone calls. I mean, there's so much. It's like, what do I choose? And what if I make the wrong decision? So that was a huge fear that we had to address. A lot of people also just didn't know what to say when they got on a sales call. Like, what does a really good 10 out of 10 founder-led sales call even look like? And so we thought about, there's this thing I like called the unique mechanism, which is effectively what's the process of the product you sell. How can it uniquely help them better than other things? And so for us, our product was called the B2B Blueprint. It was $47. And it was designed to basically let you copy and paste what was already working in Jesse's various portfolio companies. So he has a company called Gateway X. They own a company called Growth Assistant that's doing like $17 million in ARR. He sold a company before. They have a company called Ox Insights that's doing well into the seven figures. So he's had a lot of success in B2B. And he then has the right to, he has valuable things to say, right? He's been doing this thing for 15 years. And so that was our unique mechanism. And then we had to go through objections. That was the last thing where we did a lot of research. Just to give you a flavor on one, these are common objections, by the way. It's going to take way long to learn how to do this, right? I don't have enough time to implement this solution. Okay, fair. Well, what do we do then? We need to make a product that is short. You have to be able to consume it in a couple of hours, and you to be able to apply it within a couple of weeks directly to your sales and immediately see those the results in your sales calls. And there's a bunch of others too. We'll, for folks who stay till the end, we'll send you this deck if you stay. So don't worry, you'll get all this and you'll be able to see the things that I didn't go through explicitly. Okay, the last thing I want to talk about in research, ask for feedback. Give people an MVP of what you design. The way that we did that was we went back to everybody who initiated those initial conversations. We sent them this email and they gave us tremendous feedback on what they liked and what we should change. We made those changes, but the even more important part was that now those conversations, that the people, the things they said that they loved, that then became social proof. It became testimonials when we did the actual launch. So that even though we hadn't launched anything before, we already had assets, other people who believed what we were doing was working for them to show folks who didn't know about the product yet. So this is twofold in its usefulness. I highly recommend doing this. And that's what this resulted in, right? We were very confident that we had the right thing to give people because our customer had already validated the product. So this research process is really important. Let's talk about how do you decide what kind of product to launch. So we're going to connect the research to actually going and making something. I would highly recommend to everybody, start your newsletter or reflect on where you want your newsletter to be like today, like this weekend, on what your value ladder is going to be. What is a value ladder? Most really successful newsletters have tiers of things that they're offering. You may have something free on the front end and number one on the left-hand side, something that is a relatively low price, but is fairly accessible in the middle, and then something on the very back end for the people who could benefit the most from your product or your service that is higher ticket. So on the free side, right, that might look like free educational email courses. It might be databases, right? There's a buddy of mine, Michael Hauk, who consolidated like 100 different VC decks for Uber and Airbnb. Like, who wouldn't want that? And it's free. Like I would sign up for that. Low ticket could be blueprints. That's what we did. High ticket, these could be courses, cohorts, memberships. If you have a service business or a product business, you have a SaaS business, and you just have an email list, right? Technically, that company is your back end, right? So this is how you think about a three-tier value ladder. There's a company that I love that does this really well, Tiki Bush and Nicholas Cole. They've generated these two probably $10 million in the last couple of years with their ladder. And these, just so you have this, are all of their products and services that sit under each part of their ladder. So on the free side, they've got their COO came up with what's called funnel ninjas that teach you about funnels. Their niche, by the way, is all copywriting. It's ghostwriting. It's all writing or copywriting related. And so you've got their low ticket stuff. They have a couple paid newsletters, each of which are generating six figures. We'll actually go into an example of their latest launch, which happened last week. So it's about as recent as it could possibly be. Should be the third bullet under the middle section. They launched something called Category Newsletter. It did about $650,000 of revenue in 7 days for Black Friday. And on the high ticket side, they have millions of dollars running for Premium Ghostwriting Academy and some other products. So this is like an actual real business that is built around this exact concept of the value ladder. Okay, the next part of how I think about offer creation, I talked about this a bit in the last workshop, but I'm bringing it up again because I think it is probably the most important thing you could do for copywriting, for sales pages, for starting a business, frankly. This is called the value framework, and it's by a guy, Alex Ramosi. He is probably one of the best people at this framework that I've ever seen. I used to be a consultant at one of these fancy consulting firms, BCG, and like we would look at frameworks all day. That's all we would do is create frameworks for companies. This is probably one of the best frameworks I've ever seen. And value, to Alex, it's a function. You've got your numerator here, which is the size of the dream outcome, right? It's the vacation, it's the amount of growth this is going to provide for your business, it's the weight loss you're going to get by doing this fitness thing, right? Multiplied by the perceived likelihood of achieving that value. So how do you make that thing bigger? Well, let's say if you're a gym coach, you've helped 1,000 other people lose weight who look exactly like this person. And they've all given you video testimonials, right? That raises the numerator. So this is the top of value, divided by things that subtract from value. So having to wait to get the value, that subtracts from the value. Nobody wants to do that. And effort and sacrifice. Do I have to start doing things that I don't want to do, right? If you think about weight loss, do I have to start cooking healthier food and go to the gym? Do I just stop doing things that I love? Do I just stop eating the candy or going to my favorite restaurant all the time? And one of my favorite examples of like why I think this is so interesting, why I think it's so true. So we live in a world. So we work with Arnold Schwarzenegger's team, and he has, for instance, tons of free value in the form of diet guides, workout plans, all free, completely free, right? So we live in this world where Arnold is giving away probably the highest credibility person who could speak on the topic of fitness, right? All this free information. In the same world we live in, there's liposuction. People pay $15,000, $20,000, right, in order to lose weight. But why is that? How can both of those things both exist in the same market? Certainly for Arnold, the top of this function is super high, right? Losing weight, feeling healthy, incredible amount of value. Who better to teach you than Arnold? The problem is that the bottom part of the equation is pretty high too, right? It could take 6 months, 8 months of working out to see results. You have to go to the gym, you have to change your diet, you have to start cooking more, but there's all these things that take away from the perceived value. Liposuction, of course, there's a cost to it, there's a financial cost, but it's immediate, right? And after a couple of weeks, it's probably fairly pain-free. And so that's why both of these products, these solutions exist in a single market. Whenever we're doing any kind of copywriting or selling of digital products, there are actual levers that sit underneath these. I'll just give you two quick ones, and then we'll keep it moving. But for instance, under the dream outcome, one way that you can raise the dream outcome or make it more real is amplifying the feeling behind the dream outcome. So there is, let's say, there's losing weight, certainly, right? But then there's the feeling, right, of walking around and feeling like you're the best version of yourself, right? There's growing your business with the B2B blueprint, but then there's the feeling of knowing where your customers are going to come, the financial freedom, being proud of what you've built, being proud of your team, right? These are feelings. It's always better to talk about feelings when you can with respect to dream outcomes. One other quick one, effort and sacrifice. How do you make that as small as possible? Well, the reason that we called it the B2B blueprint is we want it, and it truly is, we want to make it be as done for you as possible. Just follow these steps. And we even gave people real sales calls that Jesse and his team had gone through completely unedited. So you see exactly how they sell to real customers. That is about as blueprinty as you could possibly have. There is very little room to not understand or to be unable to implement the information that is being told to you. That reduces the effort and the sacrifice. Again, we'll give this deck out to people who stay. Here's a bunch of different examples, specifically just in the case of fitness, of all of these different tactics so that you have them to keep. Okay, email nurture. And this is my favorite part of this. This is one of my favorite things to do. So my philosophy for email nurture is give away the secrets, sell the execution. Email does a tremendous job of converting people from readers into customers. It probably is the lowest lift thing you could probably do. E-commerce does a ton of it. I think B2B businesses probably don't do enough. And you should be thinking about making your email nurture as valuable as possible. Tell people how to solve their problem and then sell away where they don't have to do it themselves. You'll do it for them. That's the best way to approach email nurture.
I love that. I just want to jump in and say, like, that's such a smart insight, and how so many companies make tons and tons of money. If you look at all the biggest companies, many of them give away software, for example, but then like sell the expertise of like, hey, we make this great thing. You could do it yourself. It's going to be very expensive. You're going to have to hire people who have that expertise, or you could just pay us a fraction of that, or a nominal amount, and we can do that for you. And the thing is, like, what you learn is that most people, even if they have like big lofty ideas, at the end of the day, when push comes to shove, can have trouble like executing. Execution is the hardest part. Ideas are kind of a dime a dozen. You might have some expertise, but in today's world, like, the knowledge itself, the information is always a click away. There's very little knowledge out there that's like truly gate kept, that you can't find somewhere. And so a lot of people, like, they do try to wall in that information. And at the end of the day, that's what provides your credibility. That's what provides the confidence that if somebody wants to pay you, that you can actually execute on it. And so if they can see that you have this, information, it's the perfect entry point to being like, okay, just do this for me. I don't have time to figure this out. Love that.
Totally agree. Yeah, never be afraid to like just tell people what you're doing. That's literally what this is, right? We're not gatekeeping how we do these launches. Like just do this for your launch. I like that a lot. I like that a lot. So this is like a kind of visual representation of that. The good email nurture, it's still doing selling, right? You have to have a call to action. You have to actually ask people to do the thing you want them to do. But most email nurture is like it's all selling, right? It's you sign up for a mobile app or a SaaS product or whatever, and there's some sales rep who emails you and is like, hey John, I think this could be so useful. We've worked with 100 companies like X, Y, and Z, and we're the number one rated company and blah blah blah. I'd just love to hop on a phone call with you. Bad idea, right? So number one, you're lowering your status to the prospect, right? You're coming off as this pushy salesperson rather than a value add thought partner. And so the better way to approach email nurture, you got to do a little selling up front. People have to know you've got something to sell in the beginning, but most of it is educational. And then you focus on the selling part once somebody actually understands why the idea of this solution, whether it's your solution or not, could actually add value to their lives and they actually understand how it works. So let's talk about what that looks like and what it doesn't look like. So this is an email from Reforge. I love Reforge. I think they're a great company, Brian Belfour. But this is a very like sales only email. The last chance, take mastering product management for the fall. Here's call to action. And you're talking about outcomes and stuff. But I'm not sold on the idea of, I don't even actually know why this email is from my inbox. I'm not a product manager. I don't even know why I'm getting this email. This isn't relevant to me at all. Why should I care about product management? Sales only email. What would be a better version of that? This email, so one, this is from like a week ago. This is from Dickie and Cole's 650K launch from Black Friday. They start in their email nurture with dream outcomes in social proof. So they just launched something called category newsletter. And so right away in their email, they talk about the fact that they've made millions of dollars from just operating newsletters. And then they talk about this thing called the category newsletter that other people are doing. That's interesting. I've never heard of a category newsletter, but you have my attention. All right, I want to know a little bit more. I'm going to keep scrolling down. And they do two really smart things. They provide really concrete examples of people that are creating what they call category newsletters. So the first guy they talk about, Justin Welsh, runs a newsletter called the Saturday Solopreneur. He's made $6 million in lifetime sales. Here's what he sells. Here's the niche he owns. And now I'm reading this email from 7 days ago. Oh, I see what a category newsletter is. When I think about solopreneurship, like I think of Justin Welsh, like that he is purely associated with that term. When I think about amazing technology news, if you want to know everything possible about the state of Facebook, you go to Stratechery, right? You read Ben Thompson, and that newsletter, I had no idea, is $15 a month times 40,000 subscribers. Is making $600,000 a month. I had no idea his business was that big. So now, even for me, the idea is implanted, oh, I see. All right, if you own a category with your newsletter, that can drive a significantly large business. I'm bought into that idea. Didn't ask me to buy anything. Right? I'm just being sold on this idea that it could be important for me as a business owner. Got it. That's all they're trying to do with that email. What do you do after that? I want to walk you through two email nurture frameworks. These are from Dicky and Nicholas. We use elements of this in our nurture for Bootstrap Giants. There's some parts where we had to deviate. So, for instance, like with Jesse, it's actually very personally important to him right now to give back. He's founded a lot of very large B2B companies. And so a lot of our nurture was about like, hey, here's kind of what I'm thinking about. Like, here's why I'm doing this product. Here's why it's personally meaningful for me. But I wanted to show you this framework because we do use emails from it. And I think it is very generally applicable, even if you haven't, for instance, like business before, right? So I'll mention maybe two emails here I'll call out. Number one is the plain pitch. You always want to just start with what you're selling so people have an idea that you do have something for sale. But I really like emails 2 and 3. So email number 2, who is this for? So for instance, when we were doing the B2B Blueprint launch, we need to tell people that this is for B2B founders, which is only like half of Jesse's email list, by the way. Like that was a decision that we made at a certain revenue level. And so they have to know it's for that type of person. The other one, number 3, the 10 biggest problems. So we went into a lot of education around what problems do those people face. So I mentioned this a little bit earlier, right? If somebody feels like they are inundated with marketing channels, which one do they possibly choose? Paid ad? Is it content? I don't know. We teach them about the advantages of, in this case, warm introductions via LinkedIn, which is actually a very if you run a business, you would be extremely surprised by how much business you can drive via warm introductions sitting on LinkedIn through second, third degree connections you don't even realize exist. I've learned this recently. It's actually quite interesting. And so we educate people on why that is a very valuable mechanism beyond paid ads, which you have to have a lot of money to test, beyond content, which can take a really long time, right? And so we tell you why this thing is valuable to you. We teach you how to do it before we actually introduce the B2B blueprint. So two very good examples, I think, of value first. The second framework is all around sales. And by the way, there's a lot of emails here, right? That's the other thing. I think a lot of people get nervous about emailing their list too much. You may have 10, 15 emails that have to occur before somebody actually purchases a product, right? So it's often people do too little emailing, not too much. 2 or 3 emails I'll call out here, maybe 2 themes of emails. Number 1 would be like 13 and 15 on this screen, testimonials. So, there's 2 types of testimony emails I like. One is like a roundup. So you show a bunch of quick hits, different testimonials, which we had, right? Because we actually asked people to review our product before we launched it. We had nice things they said about that. People felt it was, I remember people guessed we were going to charge like $500 to $2,000 for the product. We charged $50 for it, right? Even after hearing that information. So it was very clear we were trying to give people as much value for as little money as possible. And then number 15, testimonial deep dive. So go very deep into how this transformed one person's business. So we talked a little bit about my business in this case. We talked about one of Jesse's CEOs. This was really useful. And the other theme are bonuses. Try to offer something on top of your actual thing you're selling for free that will go away if somebody doesn't purchase in a certain amount of time. So we sold the B2B Blueprint, at least at first, for 4 or 5 days. Then we took it off the market for about 2 months. And one of the big bonuses were the actual real sales calls from Jesse's companies. You see him sell, some of his salespeople sell. So you've got both founder-led sales and like team-led sales. And people really love that because of how tactical it is. Cool. So what did this actually look like for us? We'll dive a little bit in more there. The category we wanted to own, we talked about category newsletters and making choices, was B2B. And it was getting to $1 million of ARR, specifically with warm outreach. That's a very specific choice, right? Try to niche down as you're thinking about what product you're going to come up with and how you're going to position it. We selected B2B. We did not select B2C. We selected outreach. That meant saying no to content. It meant saying no to ads. We selected warm introductions, right? We said no to cold email. We said no to direct mail. There's other outreach methods too. This helped us really nail down something specific and help us articulate in extreme precise detail the type of value and why this was maybe a better alternative to some of the other matrices of solutions that you would see here. I want to show you 2 quick example emails. This first one was on desired outcomes. So this is like, hey, we know where you want to be, either because we've talked to other people who are like you, or we ourselves were you 2 or 3 years ago. This email resonated really well. You've got a 52% open rate. That's almost a 4.5% click-through rate to the sales page. It's a very high click-through rate. And in this case, we talked a lot about Jesse's first business that ever reached $1 million of ARR. And that feeling, particularly when you bootstrap that business, because if you'd raised VC money, right? You get to $1 million of ARR, and the conversation is basically your VC kind of goes, great, when's the next raise, right? How do we get to 10? Well, for Jesse, right, he and his co-founders owned the $1 million of revenue. They didn't have any outside investors. So that feeling was really important to talk about with people. And then in this second email, myths, this was like, how do we get rid of limiting beliefs? So we knew, specific to Jesse, some people are going to think about this product and they're going to go, I don't know if how's this going to work for me? Jesse, he sold a company for 8 figures before even doing this whole thing. He's got like 180,000 followers on Twitter, right? Maybe and you're thinking that right now. He's invincible, right? He's Jesse Pujji. So what we needed to do was have a specific email that allowed the prospect or the person on the email list to see the solution working for them. So we talk about one of Jesse's CEOs for the business growth assistant. So that business now is doing about $17 million in ARR. And Adrian, this really badass female founder, killed it at starting this business. She started this business. She was a mother, right, which already is a tremendous amount of work. She was a first-time founder. She came from a recruiting background. She didn't really come from a particularly businessy background, right? So these are all reasons why this thing, it wouldn't work for her, but it did, right? The same principles that Jesse coached her on, that he put into the B2B blueprint, worked for somebody, and that allows them, that person, to see themselves in this particular founder if they couldn't see themselves in Jesse. These I'll go through pretty quick. I always recommend doing abandoned cart emails. If somebody clicks on your link, your call to action doesn't check out, ask them why. You can do this with beehiiv automations and polls fairly easily. So we found out, for instance, we weren't even focused on making sales using the abandoned cart workflow. We just want to understand why people weren't buying. And people wrote back and they're like, hey, I missed the deadline. We only sold this thing for 4 days, and some people just didn't see it, right, within those 4 days. They were working days, business days when we put this out. And so now we know for next time, all right, maybe we do this for 7 days as opposed to 4. It's very educational for us. Last thing I'll say in this before we move to the final section of sales pages, do not overestimate, or rather don't underestimate the power of urgency. So oftentimes, this is true of Nicholas and Dickie's launch, this is true of this launch, this is true of all kinds of friends I've seen that have done these types of launches. Your emails on the final day of your sale can drive sometimes the most sales of any day of your sale, or more often than not, at least the second most sales. You can actually see this in the data. So this was just for the blueprint. It didn't count the sort of $5,000 Ascension product that we had. You see this very last day, huge pop in revenue both times. That's because we sent an email at the beginning of the day. We sent an email when there were 3 hours left for the sale. And we sent an email, I think, even when there was like 1 hour left for the sale. People need that. Even I'm an impulse buyer. Like I wait to the last second to get things. You need to give somebody a reason to do the thing now. Otherwise, they'll forget. People are busy. I'd always think about that. All right, let's go into sales page. I think just a quick thing to orient, like when do you use a sales page? When do you use like other stuff? I think sales pages are very good fits for products that are under $500. Right? So what we're really talking about, like where the sort of sales page sits from a frameworky perspective, is like, I almost think of sales pages like they're one tool in your tool belt of like a sales engine or like sales assets. And the job of the group of those things is to connect the dream outcome with your offer. It's to help educate the person on how the thing that they want to achieve will be achieved by your offer. And there's all kinds of stuff that can do that. In lower ticket, sales pages are enough, right? If you get into the $700 and $1,000, if you're selling a service that is multiple thousands of dollars, you generally need a more real-time way to answer objections and give people information. So you can do webinars. Obviously, most B2B businesses have a sales team, right? So this is kind of how I think about when do you use a sales page versus maybe when do you use a sales page in combination with other things or other things altogether. And so the best way to get good at sales pages is look at sales pages. So I'm a big fan of Justin Welsh, which is the blue sales page on the left-hand side. We've got Matt Gray, who runs Founder OS, on the bottom right-hand side. I would literally just go to these, take screenshots, throw them in a FigJam, and write out what you want your sales page to be with similar content blocks to theirs, at least at first, right? Like if you're going to learn how to play the piano, you wouldn't just sit down at the piano and start playing keys, right? You're probably going to play somebody else's song. And in that same principle, I think it's very useful to do something that's already in front of you, develop muscle memory for what works, because there often are very similar content blocks or themes in sales pages. And that will teach you such that intrinsically or intuitively what should go in a good sales page over time. One other quick thing that I think is pretty interesting, how do you price your product? This is a combination of data from our launch, from friends who've done other launches. So we were trying to think about like pricing here. So what you're looking at is conversion rate on the sales page. So 100 people see the sales page. What percent of those people then go and buy at different price points for digital products? And so one of the reasons why we chose $47 was because you either go super cheap and you have a really high conversion rate, but there's this no man's land between roughly $20 and roughly $40, $50, where there's not a huge change in the conversion rate relative to the price that you're charging. And so you generally either want to be really cheap, or you want to be right in the middle around like the $40 to $50 mark, or you want to go all the way out to the other end, higher ticket. We didn't want to do that for the low ticket product just because you generally have to provide a lot more, right? It takes a lot more time to launch something. It is $300. So we felt this would be a good sweet spot. And we were right. We were right on the mark with where we wanted to be, which was a 20% conversion rate on the sales page. Okay, let's walk through all the common elements of a great sales page. So, this is the very top of our page. I generally recommend the top of fold. So that's what you see as soon as you open without scrolling on the page. It does a couple different things. Number one, call out your audience. So for us, that was B2B founders generating less than $50,000 a month. You want to call it a promise or like some type of outcome. So we wanted to help people close sales, right? Add more customers to their business. You want to have some type of authority or credibility. Ours was talking about Jesse's experience building other businesses. But if you went to beehiiv's landing page right now, you'd see they have like a 4.9 out of 5-star review from thousands of customers, right? So social proof doesn't necessarily have to be written, right? It can be visual. There's different ways to orchestrate this. You want to have a call to action on top of fold. And then specifically for products where somebody's going to get something, I like having some type of either video sales letter, like a VSL, or an actual image of like the stuff they're going to get, some kind of digital representation, so they feel like they're getting a lot. The other thing I'd recommend is we're continuing to go down the sales page in terms of the layout. Always write in terms of outcomes or benefits, not features. So as an example here, if we take maybe number 3 on this sales page, a feature would be like, hey, we're going to give you sales calls so that you can see what a good sales call looks like. Cool. I think that's good. But the way to rate that in terms of a benefit is you're just going to be able to close like a veteran. You become very good at closing sales calls because we'll just give you the answer. We'll show you exactly what it looks like, right? That's an outcome, not a feature. Talk in terms of outcomes or benefits, not features. You want to make sure that your sales page handles objections and or alternatives, right? So if you remember thematically from this launch, there are alternatives to doing LinkedIn warm outreach to generate warm calls with either friends of friends or contacts of contacts. You could do content. You could do paid ads. And so we need to help you understand why you want to make the choice for our type of solution for your business versus the others. And for us, these things are actually, these are true. We launched this product a little bit before the election. And so one of the things we want to talk about is how generally around elections and certainly going into Q4, the price of ads raises. Paid media becomes more expensive. And so it's harder to invest in those things because they're more competitive during those times. Well, for content, Jesse sees this, and a lot of my friends who have large audiences see this. Twitter, LinkedIn, it's a lot harder now to do outbound links to your own content, to your own assets, because they want to keep everybody on their platform, not your platform. And so we're talking about both these things as trade-offs and why, therefore, LinkedIn warm outreach may be the best way to build a B2B business right now, given these sort of larger externalities. And then one of the last things I want to talk about is social proof. So social proof should systematically address every single objection that you believe or have heard that you're going to get, which we do on the left-hand side here. We talk about Jesse's CEOs. We talk about other people who have actually gone and bought the product and have said amazing things about the product. And what makes really good social proof is what I call the real, recent, relatable test. So real is like, how do we get this person as close to showing up at the person's house and telling them about the product as possible in a digital format. So generally that means like the best types of social proof or videos, like video case studies from people who have bought the thing that you're offering. A step below that would be like a written testimonial with a picture. Below that would maybe just be an anonymous testimonial, so on and so forth, right? You want to add these things around the call to actions. That's the best place to have any kind of social proof. Recent, 2 weeks ago is better than 2 months ago. And then finally, relatable. So This is an interesting one that we only learned more recently. Often reviews that begin with the problem that the buyer or prospect had, not the outcome, more closely or more efficiently help your prospect visualize the solution working for them. So, for example, it is better to say, hey, I felt like all of my customers were coming from referrals, and like I didn't really feel like I had control over how I'm acquiring customers. And then go into how you generated an extra, whatever, X dollars per month using this new system, rather than starting with the generating X dollars per month, because that tells about an outcome. But then your prospect sort of goes, okay, that's cool. I don't know if this man or woman is like me. I don't know if they have the same problem. So like, I don't know if this thing's going to work for me. Right? Always better to have testimonials start with the problem that the buyer had first. And then finally, this doesn't always apply, but like if you personally are going to be involved in your sales page in any way, put it at the bottom, not the top. Generally, I think one humbling thing to always remember, people visiting your sales page, they don't really care about you. The only reason you want to tell your story is if telling your story helps your reader understand how you were like them and therefore can help solve their problem, right? It's really about solving their problem. It needs to be about the reader, not about you. And so if you are going to use this, I'd say use it to prove credibility or authority. Use pictures of yourself that are personal as opposed to professional. And then emphasize your unique edge. What experience do you have that uniquely solves this problem better or faster than somebody else? And then here's another one. Of course, write features and terms and benefits. This is another section of our page, but also show, not tell. So if anytime you can use screenshots or visualizations of your product here, again, all that helps somebody feel like they are getting a lot of value. And so also adding bonuses. So the fact that we included real sales calls from Jesse's companies was something that people really enjoyed and mentioned to us personally after the sale. And then lastly, FAQs. FAQs should handle objections and just answer questions people are going to have. Like, how long is a sale going on? Who are you, again, in case people scroll past your About Me section. So this is generally how I use FAQs. And then the very last one, this is a long sales page. Sometimes, a lot of times for digital products, I really like offer stacks. So this is where basically you want to provide a summary at the very bottom of your sales page about all the things the person is going to get. And most importantly, you want to have an image that actually shows everybody all this stuff in one place. And you want to individually value each thing that you are offering. And ideally, every individual thing should be equal to or greater than the value, or I should say the price of the whole. What I mean by that is like we're selling something for, somebody should be able to look at this, every single one of these check marks and go, cool, that individual thing is worth more than $47. Thing number 3 is worth more than $47, right? Often people will buy your product for more likely than not one specific thing that you're offering, not necessarily the whole. And so in order to get the highest conversion rate, every individual piece needs to feel like it's worth more than the price that you're charging. That's how you'll maximize your conversion rate. One other quick one here, number 4, guarantees. They're another mechanism I talk about often, ways to reduce risk of making a purchase. So I always offer a money back guarantee, right? If somebody doesn't like your stuff, like obviously we're all going to give a refund, but it's even more important to like tell people that, like remind them that, be transparent about that. So they feel like it's fine to make the jump and make the purchase. Cool. The last thing I want to leave you guys with before we start to open up to Q&A, we're really proud of this email nurture that we did for Bootstrap Giants, and I want you to have it. This had a very high open rate. We had a very high average click-through rate. We did a very good job, mostly because we were very lucky to have readers who were very communicative with us on how to address all the objections for the product. And so 2 things I'm going to tell you about. Number 1, so about 5 minutes ago, somebody from my team just posted this deck on my LinkedIn. And so if you want to download this full deck and have the whole thing to keep for yourself, if you just go, you can scan this QR code, or there's just, if you're on desktop, there's a direct link to my LinkedIn here. You can just go on that post and comment on it, and we'll send you the deck today so that you have it. The other thing is that at 9 a.m. tomorrow, I'm going to basically release this nurture. So you get a full Notion doc with every email, the exact copy we used, the open rates. You have all the metrics. You'll have there's a video as well walking through specifically with our email nurture, the frameworks that I really love for effective email nurture. And so last time we did this, some people missed it. So what I recommend doing it just in step 2, if you follow my profile and then you hit that little bell, you'll actually just get notified tomorrow at 9 a.m. when the post goes live. So you can automatically grab it within the first 24 hours. Yeah, so I'll leave this up. But I think we move to Q&A.
That was incredible. Really awesome stuff. I'm checking to see, Tony, if we have any questions in the studio chat. Great. So
Yeah.
we want to real quick, Nathan. We want to just repeat the question because they can't hear what Tony just shared with us. So Tony was saying that in the chat there's some common themes around how to determine whether your newsletter has product market fit, what goes into determining that, and so forth. And real quick, before you answer, I personally I have a hard stop at 3, so I'm going to jump in a moment. I'll give a little spiel saying thank you to everyone after you answer this question, and then I'm going to jump. But if you want to keep, answering any questions with Tony, he can feed you the questions, and then you just repeat them to the audience and answer as you see fit. But go ahead and let's do the product market fit one before I wrap up.
Yeah, yeah. So I think the research helps. I mean, so if you want to de-risk it, of course, if you try to sell to your list, you find out pretty quickly if you have product market fit. So the way to de-risk that on the front end is to do the research. So, the way that we did it was very seeking, as in like we wanted to get in touch with readers and understand what their problems were, and we had these long conversations with them. We did these surveys, and we did actually a free response survey, and we put that into ChatGPT. And so we had a whole word cloud of the most common words people were using to describe their problems. But the other way, if you're getting a lot of responses or questions, either from your organic social feed as replies to your emails, that's your reader telling you like what they want to hear. And so that can really easily inform what you want. So very often, what we would hear from founders, and I imagine they get this as replies a lot right now, were the consistency of customer acquisition, choosing which marketing channels. And so we were very confident if we created a product around that, we just listened to the customer, that it would do very well.
Amazing. That's a great response for that. And before we get to next questions, I do want to take just a second to say thank you to the 80 or 90 people who did show up today. A really well attended webinar, and it's no surprise. Like this is such valuable, insightful, tactical information from a true pro. I'm sure that everybody here has something that they took away from it. So don't leave yet. We're not done. Nathan's going to answer some questions, and you guys should continue dropping questions in the chat. Really appreciate the great, engagement that we've seen in the chat. I know I didn't speak a whole lot today, but it's great to have everyone here. Thank you so much for joining today. From me personally, it makes all of this worthwhile. If nobody showed up, we'd have no reason to do this. And so really appreciate your time. Everybody, give a little bit of appreciation to Tony, who's been running things in the background for us, the Wizard of Oz behind the scenes. But if this was super useful, we have a community through the beehiiv community. I know that there's a lot of folks here who are on the free plan, who may be investigating on the trial, maybe looking into the platform, maybe building their newsletter kind of on that free plan. We actually have a community called the Hive based in Slack. It's 3,000 active paying customers of beehiiv. You only get access while you're an active customer. And so if this was useful, we have dozens and maybe even hundreds of messages a day floating around, people asking questions, people getting feedback, setting up cross recommendations, getting best practices, all of these kinds of things. If you are a paying customer and you haven't seen the invite, you can email me at ej@beehiiv.com. It's just ej@beehiiv.com, and I'll forward that to our community manager. Sometimes there's some issues if the Slack email is a little bit different than the email you use to sign up with Slack is different than the one that you use on your beehiiv account, but we can send you the invite, make sure that gets all worked out. There's a tool we have that can match those emails if they are different. You just have to send us an email. If you are not a customer, sign up. You'll get that invite in your email as soon as you upgrade your plan, and you can start posting, and it's great. So there's folks like Nathan in there. There's other agency owners who are happy to jump in and give advice. Other publishers. Again, these are all only active people who are serious about what they're doing, who are building real businesses. And so it's one of like the most value dense places outside of Nathan's brain. With that being said, I will let Nathan continue to do some Q&A until you guys see fit. I think the original invite might have been for 90 minutes, so we won't go the full 90. It's nice to have that extra time. So I think everybody should be potentially expecting to stay a little bit longer. But yeah, definitely stick around. I see some people have dropped. Stop dropping. Stay here. There's some good Q&A still to happen. But I'll let Nathan take over. Thank you, Nathan, for your time. This was amazing, and I learned something every time you come. So I really appreciate you and your time.
Thanks, man. I appreciate you. I'll see you in New York next week.
All right, sounds good. See you soon. Bye.
Yeah. Can you help us understand what are decent open rates and click-through rates for our segments? That's a good question. Typically, it differs a lot. And like Apple's doing all these privacy things that make open rates less deterministic and less clear than they used to be. But I think anything above a 40% open rate is pretty darn good. Click-through rates, generally, we're trying to maintain something that is a 3% or higher, specifically on call to actions for like booking a call or a digital product or something like that. Let's see. So this next question. So when do you stop trying to re-engage a customer? When are you better off just letting them go? This is a fair question. So what we described in this session was what's called a time limited or a time scarce digital product. It's like we put it live for like 4 or 5 days, and after that we have it live now, but it was gone for like 2 or 3 months. For like an evergreen sale, evergreen being like the pine trees, right? Their leaves never fall off. For something you're always offering, I would say it's fairly unlikely you convert somebody after like 15 or 20 emails. You're not doing that all in like 2 weeks, by the way. Like you may nurture somebody even over 8 to 12 weeks, pacing those emails out. And generally that would mean setting up an automation, which you can do in beehiiv, right? Everybody who signs up to your newsletter can go through the same types of information. And so they go through the full nurture process. How do you think about promotions or promotion fatigue? I think generally speaking, people under index on people are generally fearful of sending too many emails, and they generally do not send enough. One of the reasons why I like the format of nurture that I told you about, which is like educational nurture upfront, is like you're giving value, like you're doing things that are really, really valuable. And in fact, the way that we we're always learning, the way that we will probably construct this product that I walked you through today will probably start to look more like people maybe for a slightly higher process and actually getting a live session, a group session with Jesse on how to implement it in their business. And that will be one of the ways that we ascend people into the higher ticket $5,000 accelerator. However, we're going to make that free workshop, that session, so good that even if somebody walks into that thing, they don't spend $1 on the accelerator, they're going to feel like it was an incredibly valuable use of their time. So like you can be promoting, but still delivering valuable, right? Delivering value, I should say. They're not necessarily two separate things. Can you give some tactical advice around choosing what topics or deliverables to focus on for low end and then high end offers? Yeah. So topics is, I would always say, like, think about your customer. Like it's going to be super different for like a B2B entrepreneur versus somebody who, I was just use the fitness example, somebody who's trying to either lose weight or for instance, put on muscle. So the topic is, I would say, like, look at what other people are doing in your niche in terms of like what is validated. Like that's probably the most specific general advice I could give on topic without knowing your niche. To your point though, on deliverables, which generally are, there are more themes to those. For low ticket products, I like things like blueprints, databases, tools, lists, like very step-by-step actionable things that somebody can finish in a very short amount of time that solve an extremely specific problem, right? So even in B2B for the blueprint, we're specifically talking about a sales and marketing problem, right? We're not talking about annual planning or cash flow management or automations or hiring or, you know what I mean? Or finding a co-founder or coming up with your first idea, right? It's growing your existing idea, right? We're making all these specific choices so that we're solving one problem very well for one type of persona. I would use those formats against that same process of really narrowing down, really niching down. All right. I think that might be everything. Look, guys, I really appreciate it. We'll be back for more sessions. So really, reach out to me on LinkedIn. I respond to everybody. That the more I know about what your sort of burning questions are for how you grow and monetize, that's basically what we use as the input for these free sessions. And we want to create as much value for you guys as possible. So let us know what you need and we will build around it. That's my promise to you guys. So thank you so much. And we'll talk soon.